Hello and welcome to Sideways Life Podcast. I'm Leanne.
And I'm Hal.
And welcome.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
How you been? How's it all going?
Yeah. What's going on?
Yeah, tell us.
This is a one-way communication. This is not going to work.
Can people comment?
They can, but then it's asynchronous. So we can't respond to their comments because that'll be at the point at which they're listening to this, which will be in the future. So unless we can do like some kind of time machine.
We could look into that for next week.
It's a weekend project for me.
Okay.
Anyway, so today we are talking to Lucyna Bolan. Now, Lucy is a pretty extraordinary lady. I think, Leanne, did you find her on Instagram?
I think this is one of the guests that you found, actually.
Probably the only guest that I've actually found. Leanne's much better at booking guests than I am. But yeah, so Lucy, I think she first came onto our radar because she was commenting in a group that we're in for expats in Croatia. And she was running this survey about what's it like to be an expat. I think I was a bit too late for the survey, but I did see that she'd got the book, which was like the results of the survey. So I definitely popped my email address in, got her book, and it was really fascinating, really, really interesting. She'd done these surveys of all these expats, and she's asked them, like, what's the challenges, what's the good bits, what's the bad bits, and etc. We'll put a link to the book down below so you can go and get your own copy. But some of the most exciting things, I think, to give you a little brief history of her, she is originally from Poland, from a place called Gdansk. We've been there, Leanne, haven't we?
Oh, we liked it there.
We loved it there.
That was actually the last stop on our usual normal programming digital nomad life before COVID happened.
I think our plan was we came down, went to Denmark. Then we went to a place called Szczecin in Poland, and then we went to Gdansk, and then we were going to go to, was it Lithuania after that?
Yeah, and we did.
And we did go to Lithuania, but then the plan was to go on to Ukraine, and then what's the other one?
Belarus, Moldova,
and go back down to the south coast. But clearly, COVID had different ideas for us.
She had other things in mind.
She did. So we spent 6 months in Lithuania, which was not bad. It was really nice. Vilnius is a great place.
I love that you remember it as 6 months. Did it feel like that long?
Was it not 6 months?
I think we arrived, it was maybe 4.
Ooh.
A little less than 4.
Did feel like.
4 and a bit.
Well, considering that we hadn't spent more than about a month previously in any one place, it did feel a bit long. It felt like
yes. And in lockdown for most of it too.
That is true. But if you ever do go to Lithuania, then look up something called a Lithuanian split. Have I said that right? Spit. It's just a little sort of like, it's like a little piece of land on the north coast. I'm looking at Leanne now.
It is. I think it's called the Coronian Spit. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. But yeah, it's a tiny little strip of land that's got a bay on one side and a sea on the other. Half is owned by Lithuania, half is owned by Russia. So we went to the Lithuanian bit, obs. And it's cool, isn't it? Really cool. If you like fish, particularly smoked fish, hot smoked fish, you'll like it though.
Anyway, I'm not quite sure how I've taken our conversation away from expats and a lady from Poland.
Lucy. Sorry, Lucy.
Yeah, sorry if you're listening, Lucy. We segued a little bit there. So Lucy she's a coach. She works with anyone around styling, around becoming an expat, about settling in as an expat. She herself has been both an expat and a nomad. 17 cities. She's moved 29 times. We talked about being the challenges, what's stopping you from being an expat, and also when you are an expat, what are the challenges of being an expat? And again, she digs into this survey, and you get loads of great stuff from the research she's done. And then the final thing, which you and I have talked about a lot, Leanne, is the trade-off. Can you explain a bit more about what I mean about the trade-off of this life?
I think like any life, there are ups, there are downs, there are pros, there are cons. And as fabulous as it might look to be a nomad or an expat and living particularly somewhere warm and lovely, you get the whole insta envy kind of thing. But the reality is no life is perfect. And the big trade-offs are I think friendships and community and that sense of belonging is lacking.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And we do cover that actually because we talk about some people who decide they're going to go off and have a great adventure around the world because they don't belong at home, which is why I'm using my inverted commas that you can't see because it's a podcast. And then they realise that they're just as lonely, even more so in a different country because they've not even got the friends or the family that they have back at home. But anyway, so that sounds a bit negative. It's actually really interesting the way we talk about it. And it's also, if you are sitting in your home country and you are looking at planning some kind of journey, then it's good to know the goods and the bads before you set off.
Absolutely. We're not here to sell a particular lifestyle, which is why we talk to lots of different people who have different types of sideways life. But whatever type they have, there's always downsides. We need to give you a realistic picture, particularly if you're thinking about making a bigger life decision.
And it would be. Anyway. All right, so we're going to crack on to the interview now. This is the sound quality. As all our interviews, we record on a decent mic in our house when we're chatting. On the interviews, we have to do it over Zoom or something like that, Skype. So the sound quality is never quite as good. I need to apologise towards the end of this interview. I think that Lucy's laptop was about to take off. You can hear all the fans spinning on her laptop, so it sounds like she's in a wind tunnel. But that's only towards like the last sort of 7 or 8 minutes. So if you can excuse us that, then without further ado, let me introduce Lucy. We have got Lucyna Bolan with us today now. The reason why I really want to talk to Lucy is not only has she got a fantastic story, not only does she help coach people to start businesses, for fashion, life coaching, but also she helps people to become an expat. And of course, she's an expat or a nomad herself. I want to ask you a question at some point. How would you define the difference between an expat and a nomad? But we'll come on to that. So welcome, Lucy. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Good, thank you. Thanks for taking the time. I want to start off because your story is incredible. I want to start off with your story. So do you want to tell us how you got to where you are now?
So I will take you through a few stages. It all started when I graduated from high school. I wanted to take a break from further studying and I wanted to figure out what I wanted to do in life. You know, after you graduate, you have so many ideas and you just don't know where to start. So I left for a year and I went to the States. So I spent 13, 14 months in the United States, traveling, exploring, and coming up with ideas what I could do, what I could study. I came back to Poland, where I'm originally from, and I realized that I didn't want to stay in Poland any longer. So this is where I started my nomadic journey. I traveled in Europe for 2 years. And after that, it was, I think, time for me to start my bachelor's degree. So the next stage was starting my studies in Poland, in Gdańsk, where I was born. But I always was looking for opportunities to travel and to spend some time abroad. So with my bachelor's degree, I spent 2 semesters in Germany because there was a European exchange program. And while I was at it, I was already planning my next stage because I wanted to explore more countries, and I then moved to London where I did my master's degree and started my first jobs. But I've always had this urge and an eagerness to move, to explore new countries, to meet new people. So I went back to Germany and I was lecturing intercultural communication at a university in Germany, and I was looking for opportunities to be a guest lecturer in other European countries. So I spent a few months in Valencia at university lecturing English and intercultural communication there. The next stage was moving from lecturing to corporate training. So I started working in learning and development for a recruitment company in Frankfurt. And with this job, I traveled a lot. So even though my life was not nomadic, because I stayed put in one city for 3 years, I ensured that I had the opportunities to travel in my job. And this took me to Barcelona with my next job, which again enabled me to travel with the job. And 3-4 years ago, I moved from Barcelona, Spain, to France, where I opened up my own business. And this is where and when I started working remotely. So I could call myself a nomad because I can take my job with me. But throughout those years, it was 20 years that I lived abroad, so away from Poland, even though I had a job and a permanent contract, and I would definitely not fulfill the definition of a nomad. My job made it possible for me to travel and to work in different countries and across different continents. So to go back to France, I started my coaching business, and last year I moved back to Poland. So I repatriated after 20 years abroad due to family reasons. Maybe we can come to it later. But just in a nutshell, this is what my story is about.
That's really cool. And it was 18 cities and moving 29 times. Is that right?
Exactly. So across 6 countries, I have moved 29 times. So I have lived in 29 different flats, houses, establishments, you name it. And now, I came back to where I used to go to school. So I'm in the very same place, which feels very bizarre, but also refreshing and rewarding in a way.
We spent a month in Gdansk 2 years ago, or just after Christmas, and absolutely fell in love with the place. It was we were right in the city, where the Granary Granary Wharf, is it called?
Oh yeah, in Gdańsk, that's the old city. Yes, this is really lovely, and it's changed. When I left, it wasn't as beautiful. I used to go to secondary school there, and I've changed. The city has changed.
Out of all these places you've been to Philadelphia, you've been to Liverpool, you've been to London, France. Is there one place that is your favourite?
Yes, this is an easy answer for me. So Barcelona is definitely my place on earth. I know many people love it, adore it. It's their favorite city in the world. For me, it has a deeper meaning because when I moved from Frankfurt, Germany to Spain, it was an unexpected move. So I was just about to settle in Germany. I was at that point in my life when I thought, okay, I have been traveling and I am ready to settle. When I received a phone call from a headhunter saying that there was this job and that project in a company, and I say, yes, sure, let's do it. But then he told me it's in Barcelona. So that involved me moving yet again, which I did. But I thought this is the very last time I'm moving. And I met my now husband there, and my first child was born there. So that's why Barcelona is special to me, but also because of the culture and the vibe and the dynamics of the people. I feel like when I'm in Barcelona, I get this vibe that anything is possible. I feel somehow much more positive. So maybe the sunshine, maybe the people, maybe the possibilities that influence how one feels.
I love that. Which is that's actually a question which you've just made me want to ask you is at what point does someone nomadic, does someone who travel a lot, what do you think do you think there's a defined point where someone says I want to settle? Is it after a period of time? Is it after a life event? What do you think?
I think it could be both. So I actually reached out to nomads and expats and asked them the difference, right, between an expat and a nomad, and what characterizes a nomad. So I think I received 500 something answers. So I think we make the definition ourselves. To me, a nomadic person works remotely, doesn't stay in a place for longer than 3 to 6 months. They usually are entrepreneurs, they have their own business, or they have gigs. An expat is a person who would stay put for a few years in a place, or maybe would emigrate it from their country of origin abroad and stay there. I have to say that there was that point in my life when I wanted to settle. That doesn't mean that I would have stayed in Frankfurt back then, for the rest of my life, but I wanted to have a home base. So I wanted to have a place I can call home, my own flat, my own little garden, my own little terrace where I can do yoga. And I think that moment where I realized that just arrived. I don't think it can be when you are, in your late 20s. It can be in your mid 30s. It was just like the inner desire, and I have to admit, I felt tired of always traveling, always having the suitcase open where I just, put things in and out. So I wanted to have a base.
Yeah, I think we can definitely we can definitely understand that. We personally, my wife and I, we moved to Spain in 2012. We started full-time traveling in 2017, and we stayed no more than probably a month in any one place. Sometimes 2 weeks, sometimes it was a week. Yeah. And it got to last year. And thanks to the lockdown, we spent 6 months in Lithuania. We're like, this is quite nice actually being somewhere for 6 months. Yeah. So yeah, we did 6 months in Maribor, and now we've just gone for the 12-month visa in Croatia. So we're going to be here for a year. So I think we still see ourselves as nomads in the, we'll still travel from there. We might disappear for a month down to Split or something. But it's an interesting thing you're saying, difference between expat and nomad, because
Yeah.
I suppose it could be pretty much the same thing,
Yeah.
depending on your outlook, couldn't it?
Yeah. People say that nomads don't have belongings, nomads don't have many possessions, nomads are very flexible, nomads do not have many bonds, links, so that they are very flexible and that they can just pick up their luggage and go. So this is how people defined it. I was a nomad, let's say, for maybe 2 years when I was deciding what to do, what to study, where to begin my studies. Then I would stay in Hungary for a month and then go to Lithuania. I was visiting my friends that I had met before in the States. Then I was just testing the vibe and saying, am I staying here? Am I going? And this is, to me, was nomadic. I didn't have a set plan. I didn't have a game plan. I would make decisions depending on how I felt, what ideas I would receive, from the place. Whereas when I was an expat, I had a permanent contract, I had a flat, I had an address, I had a phone, things like that. So when the next stage, would loom in, that entailed changes, that entailed traveling to a new place, finding a new flat, going through all the formalities, the paperwork again. So when you're an expat, you don't want to do it too often, because that, of course, takes a lot of time, energy.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. So thinking about both your experience and the clients you help to become nomads or expats, what do you think are the challenges stopping people from doing this, living this life?
Yes, so I remember when I lived in Spain, and people would ask me, where I was from, and then they would hear from my accent that I wasn't Spanish, and then they would learn that I had traveled, and they would share with me that they had always wanted to do it, and they would love it if they, one day moved abroad. And then, of course, my question would follow. So, what is blocking you? What is stopping you? What are you thinking? Why are you hesitating? Sometimes I think it is the fear. Yes, I think it's the most obvious answer. The fear of the unknown, the fear of new things, uncertainty, ambiguity. Sometimes it's your life circumstances and lack of clarity. If you want to leave, but you don't know why you would actually be going to that new place, and then where you would be going and what you would be doing in that place, and would your partner be coming, your family, with you, and for how long. And if you start overthinking it, what's at stake, what is the trade-off? If I go, what will I gain, but what will I lose? Unless you have the strong desire and an urge and you want to do it anyway, because if you don't, you'll regret, you won't do it. If you don't have that strong urge, probably you will just keep dreaming about it rather than actually going and doing it.
There's something in your Thrive ebook, which we'll talk about in a minute, that talks about, my phrasing is that people sometimes move the other side of the world, and the only thing that's changed is the view out their window, because they feel like they're running away from some problems.
Yeah.
And you addressed that pretty much early on in this guide. So can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. So I think it was the first chapter in the guide. Start with the why, and people think, but I don't really know why I want to move abroad. People around me do it. It's fashionable. It's trendy. You need to know for yourself why you want to go. And again, what you've just said, are you running away from something? Is it something that you are not currently unhappy with in your life? You're dissatisfied, something is missing, and you think that this void will be filled in that new place. So if this is what you're thinking, you need to have a reality check, because it won't. Yeah, I would start with clarity, why you want to move abroad, and have a rough game plan. So not too much planning, not too much preparation, not too much research, so that you still are curious and open to the novelty. If you're thinking about it, it means that you want to do it. If you're not doing it, you're just scared. And if you're scared, it's good scared. So use this fear as a fuel, as your motivation, and just see what you need to really move the step. A good chat with a friend. Do you need maybe a specialist who can help you with the move? What is it in the whole process that's overwhelming you? Is it, the technical, the formalities, the paperwork, the move itself? Or is it, your inner voice, that keeps talking to you and makes you sit on the fence instead of acting, doing something. And life is short, so if you find this lifestyle attractive, if you find that country calling your name, why not do it? Write this down. What is stopping me, and how big is this giant, this beast? You can ask yourself, what's the worst thing that can happen, and what's the best thing that can happen? And if you write down the scenarios of the worst thing that can happen, and you just find a quiet moment and find a few solutions, quick ideas of what you could do when that worst thing, happens, when the worst comes to the worst, then you feel better prepared. Then you are eliminating, the doubts, the fears, and you can focus on the best thing that can happen, because what you want wants you. So if you think what you want, you are manifesting it, and it will happen. So spend more energy on what you want from that move abroad, from that stay abroad. And it's been proven that when you think about what you want, it will appear in your life. It will manifest itself. You will attract it. And I am a big fan of the law of attraction. I have tested it many, many times. And the opposite. If I thought about what I didn't want, in most cases, it happened. It arrived.
Yeah, I think there's a German philosopher who's got a name to that sort of scientific side of that, of the law of attraction. I think even if you don't believe in this slightly ethereal law of attraction, certainly if you think about something, you'll notice that opportunity. So, I definitely agree with all of that, is that if you are out, for example, we were thinking about going to Poland, and then almost everywhere we looked, we'd see stuff about Poland. We were like, well, that's weird. But actually it's there already. It's just we're noticing it now because that was on our mind. You pick up on something there I think is really, really important. And that is that traveling can be lonely, even if you're doing it as a couple, which my wife and I travel full time as a couple. We've lived abroad as a couple, and luckily we get on really well. We've got the same weird sense of humor, but it is a lonely time actually, living abroad, isn't it? Yes. So tell us a bit more about how someone might overcome that. If you
make friends with yourself, and if you enjoy spending time with yourself, then the loneliness will be easier to tackle. Of course, when we travel, there is a lot of Facebook groups that you can join. There is a lot of events for expats that are organized. You can join local clubs. You can go outside and just try to strike up a conversation. But if you do it with that why in mind, that I need to meet people, I want to make friends, I want to build my network. If your energy is focused on that, sometimes you might find yourself feeling that you are forcing it, that you are wanting it too much. And with all those efforts, you might even find yourself feeling more lonely. So this is what I've experienced working with other expats who have this huge network of friends. They have colleagues and friends in all those places that they have lived. And then they have their friends and family back home. And at the end of the day, they still feel lonely because they depend on the external circumstances to fulfill their need of acceptance, of satisfaction. So that's why I bring up the idea of creative living. How can you live your life creatively so that, first of all, you love spending time with yourself, you have something that you create, whether it's a podcast like you, or it's a piece of writing, or it could be something with arts, or it could be you going for a walk, or it could be you doing, walking meditation. It could be you cooking a delicious meal. It could be you taking care of yourself or of your, your pet. So there is always something that you can do to fill this void.
I think that's a brilliant way of looking at it. I think the pandemic has, ironically, it stopped most people from traveling, but also it's allowed people during the lockdown, as you say, to learn to, I don't want to get too wishy-washy and say love yourself, but almost be comfortable with your own company, and find other creative ways to build your community or connect with your community. So in actual fact, although it's a bit strange, us all being locked in our houses and not being able to travel, I think when everything does open up again, I think it's going to prepare a lot of people who are now happy to work remotely and now happy being on their own to say, screw it, I'm off. I'm going to go and live somewhere in Europe or Thailand or wherever. I think it's really cool.
And actually, just if I can add, if you're committed to staying in touch with your friends, or committed to not being lonely, you know, if you like make a deal with yourself, it will happen. So I have clients who have lived abroad for 10 years, 12 years, and they have better relationship with their family and friends back home than before they had left. So they make it a priority. They have a system in place. So every Saturday they have a call with the family. They have catch-ups every month with their friends in this location. They meet people where they have common passions and goals, even if they have to do it over Zoom. You know, they have the Zoom on while they cook, while they watch TV. They even watch films together. So if you want to connect, you can.
Yeah.
You just need to make it a priority and have a plan and say, okay, what suits me? What do I like? Can I join maybe a hiking group? I mean, in the pandemic, I've done a lot of hikes with people from all around the world. Yes, we maintained the distance, but we still managed to have an amazing time in the forest where we hiked, you know, in 2 meters of snow for 4 hours. So things are possible if you want them, if you are creative and make them happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think there's anyone who's listening from the UK or from the US, Canada, Australia, where English is your first language, you are so lucky, because almost everywhere you go, other nomads and expats will speak your native language, and we're so lucky to have English as our first language. And we don't think we've been anywhere where we haven't found a few people who are very willing to talk to us in our native language, even though we're struggling to manage theirs. So would you tell me a little bit more about your coaching business? So who do you coach? Who's a perfect client? What's the transformation that you help to happen?
So I have worked, most of my life I have worked with expats. So even before I opened my coaching business, the people I had trained when I worked for the two recruitment companies, they have been expats working in IT, in marketing, in finance, and in recruitment sales. So when I decided to have my own coaching practice, it was a very easy decision to address expats. A, because I have been an expat myself for 20 years, and B, the people that I have got to know, the people that I have accompanied have been expats. How do I help expats? Some expats don't even call themselves expats. They don't even know they are expats, or they feel they are just international professionals. So I wouldn't put them in that box, because you need to be very careful with naming them. But the people that come to me, they either are living abroad now, or they want to live abroad, or they used to live abroad. So they have an international profile, if you like. They speak various foreign languages. They are career-oriented, but they also are, in most cases, at a crossroads in their lives. So they have seen a lot, they have done a lot, they have achieved a lot, and now they definitely want to spell out what their meaning in life is. So they want to continue living with a purpose, and it shouldn't be wishy-washy or cheesy. They really want to know their why. So when they come to me, we look at where they are in their lives and where they want to go, so that the next step they take, the next decision they take, they are convinced that this is the right decision. It's just in sync, it's in tune with what they want to do for the rest of their lives. So this, some of them approach me because they are now opening their business that should be sustainable, a business that is in line with their why. Other professionals might approach me with a topic related to their relationships or their health. But we always look at their whole life, because the kind of coaching I do is systemic coaching, meaning that what's important is you, the individual, but also all the relationships you have in your life. So if you can start with yourself and be a better version of yourself every day, of course the relationships you will have will also improve. So you have a bigger impact. So not only the relationship with your children, with your partner, will be better, but the one with, maybe the person who serves you in the shop, and your neighbor, and your customers, and your colleagues, and your reports. So we take like a helicopter view of your life, and we tackle, the biggest, let's say, priority first, making sure that that you create a balance in your life, in all the areas of your life. So the transformation is clarity about what I want to do in my life, how I want to do it, what goals I want to achieve, how I want to live my life, what I am about, what my passions and strengths are, so that I can do what I am best at most of the time. Because this leads to a life full of satisfaction. People will recognize me for what I do. I add value and I don't struggle. So whatever I do in life doesn't feel like work, because it gives me so much pleasure that work doesn't feel like work, and I'm adding value to this greater good.
Tell me, I'm interested in, with a lot of people working remotely now but still being employed, do you think that that's going to allow a lot more people to go and live part-time in another country or even full-time?
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually accompanied people who were in the process of making this decision to leave their permanent jobs, but while they decide to leave their jobs, they are now defining what it is that they could do. So this actually, I love this process, because they are gaining a better self-awareness of what they're actually good at, what they want to do, next. So they are exploring their experience and looking at it from a different perspectives, looking at their skills, becoming also more self-reliant, trusting themselves that they can. So they are now, I think, encouraged to create their own mission and vision and then apply this. So before the pandemic, I would be delivering more face-to-face coaching, while now it kind of goes without saying that I can coach clients online wherever they are. It gives me more flexibility, but also the clients can fit it in better in their schedule. They don't need to drive, they don't need to commute, they don't need to park their car, and they see that this is possible. So even though we don't want to talk about COVID, it has, I think, because I'm trying to see always opportunities and challenges. I think this is what my biggest learn has been, in all my transitions, to see the challenge, to see the challenges as something you can learn from. So what I have learned from the pandemic together with my clients is that while there's something really difficult happening, how can we use it to our advantage? How can we rediscover ourselves, reinvent ourselves, and become even more resilient, so that if we have to, fall face first next time, how will we bounce back and forward even quicker? So that if you adopt this attitude, then you really can live your life to the fullest, because you can trust yourself that whatever happens, you can manage.
Which then helps people to grow into a different kind of person. If you are self-reliant, then you can decide, I've always been an employee for all my life and I'm too scared to start a business. You move abroad for 6 months, you realize you're stronger than you think, and then you can start a business.
Absolutely. So from the survey that I have conducted with expats and nomads, is like when I asked them what piece of advice they would give to people considering moving abroad, they most of them said, go and do it, because this will be the best lesson about yourself and the world. And it's not only about going abroad and then working remotely and only having your own company. There are so many other ways and options. You can find gigs, you can start, you can have a job that will have you travel around the world. You can have gigs, you can work for a local company. So people, when they think about leaving their country and going and living abroad, they think, I need to be an entrepreneur, I need to take my work with me, and I need to have already a business up and running, and everything has to be set up. No, not really. If you feel like you need to go, and maybe this decision will give you the boost, the motivation, the fuel, the creativity to build your business, or to find the gig, or to find a job locally, or to find a job that will have you travel all around the world. Mm-hmm. So you see, I'm always about options. So there's not only A and B, there is so many possibilities. So the company I worked for in Germany was a British-based company, S3, that had me deliver training and coaching face-to-face and online to 25 countries. So even though I might not have traveled to the country, I have met people from India, from Singapore, from Australia, from the US on a weekly basis. So I felt like, I was part of their culture.
So tell me, you talk about your survey and the results of which are really interesting. They're in your ebook, which I'll put a link to get your ebook below this. Was there anything surprising that came out from the survey? Anything surprised you?
I think what surprised me is that people are very eager to talk about the pros, but also they're very aware about the challenges. So the most feedback was about the trade-off. So be aware that going abroad is not only the exploration and the adventure, that there is, I wouldn't say a price to pay, but there is a give and take. There is a trade-off. So if you have awareness of what you're gaining, but what you might also be saying no to, then it will be easier to accept it. So I think when we talk about the nomad lifestyle and being an expat, what most people do not know about expats is that they tend to suffer in silence. And this was also something that I brought to the surface, that we expats are curious people. We like getting out of our comfort zone. This is like in our DNA. But because of all those expectations that we have of ourselves, of the new country, of the new job, we think, or we assume we should be able to manage it all by ourselves because we have the capacity, right? We have the resources. But sometimes we do get stuck. Sometimes we might have to have a chat with a best friend, or get professional help, or just admit that, I need to slow down. I need to sort this out and speak also about the problems I have.
I know that that a lot of people think, I'm going to sort of upgrade my life by going traveling, but really what you're doing is you're making room for amazing new experiences, but you have to make room by losing something else from your life. And excuse me, that's seems to be a theme amongst quite a lot of people we've interviewed who've said, look, if I'd stayed, like there was a particular guy, an accountant, but he knows that if he stayed in his home country, he might have been sort of 3 or 4 rungs up the ladder, but he decided to move to Gibraltar. Where he knew that, okay, my trade-off is that I can come home from work and go stand-up paddleboarding around the Gibraltar coast or something, or I can get my pool, whereas if he lived in Guernsey, couldn't necessarily do that. So I think that's a really, really interesting and really important point, that a lot of people who want to travel don't necessarily comprehend that you have to make room in your life for travel by taking potentially something else out.
It's a trade-off. And again, it's not about just focusing on the challenges, right? Because then we will be discouraged from moving. I think it's about going back to what we said. What is your why? What do you need in your life? What do you want? So go and then look for it. Make sure that you find the ingredients. If career is not what if like you've just mentioned, this accountant, what he wanted is the flexibility, a different lifestyle, not necessarily maybe the 3 steps up the career ladder. So if you're clear about what you want, then you are going to be in peace. So your life will be in harmony, because you will know that, you will know why you are where you are.
Absolutely. Love it. Okay, right. So if I want to thank you so much for your time. You've been so interesting. And you've got such an interesting life. By the way, we've not even talked about your style coaching, which you do. You seem to have a lot of skills. So if someone is interested in a style makeover or anything like that, go to your website, and there's a whole section on style there, isn't there?
It's part of the coaching. So it's not only about the style, it's more about the image. So if you want to feel more confident, and you start with the inner self, but still the outer self. So your appearance, your gestures, your eye contact, they do not transmit that. You might want to work also on your appearance, on the colors you wear, to boost your confidence. Because you might be a very aware human being and feel confident, but it doesn't show on the outside. So if you wear the right clothes that are fitted to you, with the right cuts, with the right fabric, with the right dynamic and movement in them, this can just foster your confidence. So I work with coaches on that, on their image.
Lucy, thank you so much for all your advice, and for giving people a real reason to consider traveling or moving abroad or something like that. Because I think when this pandemic finally disappears, we don't want to say the C word, when it finally disappears, then I think a lot of people will be more prepared and ready to go off and live a different life. So if people want to learn a bit more about you, or perhaps talk to you about your coaching, what's the best place for them to?
I would recommend they go and check out my website, because I have a lot of information about really what coaching is. So if they don't know, they're not sure, because there is so many types of coaching, I would direct them there to read that first, and then send me a message, send me an email. I'm also on Facebook, on Instagram, and on LinkedIn, and with the same name, Lucyna Bolan. So this is where they can find me.
So that was Lucy Bolan. I hope you enjoyed that.
What a lovely lady.
She really is. She really is. She's very generous with the time and her information, and just an all-round nice person. In fact, fun fact, about maybe 5 minutes from the end of the interview, her neighbour started drilling into the wall, and we just couldn't hear each other. And so I said, "Don't worry, I won't be able to edit it out, but we might be able to just cut the interview short." She went, "No." And she went round and spoke to the neighbour and very kindly asked him to stop drilling, and came back. But any bit of a behind the scenes irrelevant info for you there. So, what was your biggest takeaway from that one, Leanne?
I think, as we said at the beginning, it is that trade-off, and the trade-off is real. It's really real, and you have to think really carefully. And it's not even just from a social aspect. Every life brings up challenges and low points, and if you've not got that social, support network around you, it can be even tougher. So I think it's something you have to really seriously consider, and particularly in terms of where you're going to go, how long you're going to spend there. I mean, for us, I guess until Mrs. COVID came along. We did all right in terms of seeing people. We'd go back to the UK at least once a year, maybe twice. People would come and visit us. We'd gate crash people's holidays all the time. So I never really felt that lacking. Yes, we'd go, maybe 3, 4, 5 tops at a time without seeing somebody that we knew. Or from making a friend that we spent a good bit of time with when we were travelling. But I think especially since COVID has impacted, it struck me. I mean, we have family that live in New Zealand, and it strikes me. Hi, Lorna. Hi, Tom.
Hello.
It really strikes me about how that is a real thing that they need to deal with, is not seeing family for chunks of time.
And it sounds like we're being negative about this lifestyle, because we're not at all. As we've said all along, just being realistic. I mean, we're husband and wife, and I think if we were having marital issues and decided that the fresh start is what we wanted, and wanted to just move to a different country, that would be a disastrous thing, because then you're relying on each other all the time. And you have to have this friendship relationship, because you've got a codependency, because you're depending on them for all of the everything, really, until you settle yourself and find more friends. But it's really easy to find friends. In Istria, we joined a local group, which was fantastic. Went on a dog walk. We saw some people on there who come for a dog walk and didn't even have a dog. They just wanted to come and say hello.
And I think that's a really good tip as well, actually. If you see a social opportunity, and Facebook's a really great resource for it, isn't it? Probably more than Instagram or the TikTok, as the kids call it. But yeah, Facebook groups are really good, and yeah, if an activity's going on and you don't quite fit the criteria, but you think, sorry, I'll go.
Yeah, definitely.
Smile, wave, say hello. If you're in a bar or a restaurant or a cafe, again, try and make conversation, particularly if the person speaks your language. I think you just have to really put yourself out there.
Language. Anyway, so I think that's it for now. We have I don't have the schedule in front of me for the next one.
It'll be a surprise.
It'll be a surprise to all of us. So, thank you for listening.
Yeah, thanks, guys. If you want to leave a review, a positive review, that'd be nice. If you didn't like this episode, then 1, why? But 2, you don't feel you need to leave a review. But if you want to, it can help other people find us.
Yeah, no 1 stars here, thank you very much. We're a 1-star free zone.
And 2 for that matter.
And 3.
Yeah.
4 or above is what we're looking for.
Yeah, we're looking for a 5, but we'd take a 4.
We'd take a 4.
Reluctantly, but we'd take a 4. So if you want to leave us a 5-star review,
that would be phenomenal. Just do it on iTunes or your local, whatever app you use. But iTunes is better for us. So just hop along to iTunes, the podcast app, and find our show. Scroll down and it says leave a review. Click that button and just write some wonderful things about us. And thank you in advance. Right, better go and pour you another gin, Leanne.
best had.
Bye for now.
Bye. Do you think we're a bit needy with the whole review thing? Do we sound even more needy now talking about it?
Oh, don't worry, I'll cut this bit out.
Okay.